Are there any additions or changes to the agenda by commission members or staff? No? Okay. If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved. Go ahead.
It's going to arm wrestle a little bit.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, we have a plan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have 2 sets of meetings. Jill, do you want 2 separate motions, or is one okay on the minutes? Okay. Are there any changes or additions to either the special meeting minutes or the regular meeting from January 24th? No? If not, do we have a motion to approve both sets of minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Kelsey, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by
Kathy.
Sarah. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, those pass. And then we have some commission appointments and elections. Karen, do you want to do that?
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Planning Commission. So as we discussed at our January meeting, we typically appoint the officers for chair and vice chair during the first meeting, but since there was so much turnover, we just wanted to give people an opportunity to look at that. So we did receive 2 nominations for chair, which is Laurel and Nate, and 1 nomination for vice chair, which would be Kelsey. So as far as the chair goes, what we typically do is just make sure that both individuals are interested in serving since you were nominated, and whether or not there is anyone else who would either like to make a nomination for chair or be considered for chair before we hold that election. Okay, hearing none. So what we typically do is Joe will just call the roll, and then you will just say your vote for the chair position. So either Laurel or Nathan. We're ready?
So do I vote for, we vote for ourselves too if we want? I mean, how does that work, or are we supposed to abstain?
Nope, you don't have to abstain. You can.
I guess me, but
Yep.
I'm not going to take it personally. That's fine. It's just weird.
Okay, this is for Laurel, correct? Laurel?
Laurel. Yes.
Yeah, no, so it's like the.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm doing this wrong.
That's all right. No, it's like we did it with the port, Jill. Like we did it with the Port Authority, where each member will just be called on, and they'll say who they vote for.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, they did it differently. No, I like this better.
Okay.
Tell you what, why don't I just make it easy? I will withdraw from the chair position. No, you're doing a fantastic job.
Okay.
Let's just make it easy on everybody.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to formally withdraw.
It would still need to be a voice vote then, for Laurel.
Now, this could get really awkward.
Kelsey's like, you're out. So now, do we just need a majority vote, or what do we need now?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a motion to nominate me as I duck under the table? This is weird. Okay, Kelsey, do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, second by Beth. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye, and I will abstain.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, now we have just Kelsey, unless we have anyone else that would like to make a nomination on that one. Kelsey, are you game?
I am.
Okay. So do we have a motion to nominate Kelsey for vice chair?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Matt, any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, perfect. Then HPC appointment is the Historic Preservation Committee. I believe they meet the first Wednesday of the month. Is that accurate?
Yep, first Wednesday of the month at noon.
Okay. Is there anyone that is, and that's a non-voting position?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any questions on what HPC does or what that would entail to be the liaison to that group? No. In the past, was that Al Kramer or who was doing that?
That was Craig Ganner.
Okay, and then before that, probably Al. Does anyone have interest in having that role? Or do we have any nominations? Would you like to do that?
Oh, I suppose I could.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Nate. Do we have anyone else that is interested in that role or would like to make a nomination? Okay, do we have a motion to nominate Nate for HPC?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Matt, do we have a second?
Second.
Kelsey, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, perfect. And then Karen, you'll get him information on those meetings?
Yep, absolutely, and you'll just be added to the distribution list, just like you are for planning commission, so
Excellent.
Okay,
double the fun.
perfect. So we have that. Now we have some public hearings. The first one is for the flour mill. If staff could do a presentation on that and maybe give some background on what we've already done with this piece of property last winter for the new members, if that would be something you could include what we did the last round with the flour mill. Isn't that?
So specifically,
Was that, we dealt with, what did we do over there? We did something with the mill, the hotel.
that was just an update to the text ordinance. So
That was
that's
just
a little bit
that-
separate from this.
that
So
was
we'll-
from that property.
Yep,
Okay,
yep. So
perfect.
we'll leave that separate, I think, for
Okay,
now.
perfect.
So this case is the rezoning for the flour mill. So the former flour mill located at 309 West Stanton Avenue. The property owner and applicant is Kevin Bartram with Flour Mill LLC. The current zoning is I2 General Industrial District, and the proposed rezoning is B3 General Business District. There is redevelopment proposed of a hotel consisting of approximately 30 rooms. There may be a second phase to this project, which may include multifamily development. So the proposed B3 zoning district would accommodate both the Phase 1 development and potential Phase 2 development, although there may be some conditional use permits required. And so just as education for our new members, when we do zoning map amendments, that changes the zoning district for that property. So even though something is proposed with a use, it would allow any use in that zoning district to occur there. So it's not that we're evaluating whether or not a specific use is good, but whether or not that zoning district is appropriate for that location. And rezonings can also not be approved with conditions. This was the area map that was included in the staff report. So surrounding uses to the north here, just the market home goods store, Service Foods, the grocery store. To the west, there's some service garages and glass suppliers, so kind of a mix of uses, and a brewery. To the south, we obviously have the river. And across Union Avenue is the Wells Fargo building. This is the current zoning map. So the parcel is highlighted here in this kind of aqua color. So as you can see, this is the I2 zoning district, which is that industrial district. And for the most part, it is surrounded by that B3 general business district, which we talked a little bit about last time at our meeting. It's our downtown district. It typically allows for retail uses, but a hotel through a conditional use permit is one of those. As far as public comments, none were received prior to publishing the staff report, and none were received after the staff report was published. And the mailing was sent to owners within 350 feet, as well as the DNR area hydrologist, since this property was located within the Shoreline Management District. And there were no internal City of Fergus Falls staff comments received either. And so based on the findings listed in the staff report, staff recommend approval of the rezoning request. And I'm available for any questions that there might be, and I think the applicant walked in as I was, yep, hi Kevin. So he would be available if there's any questions as well. So thank you.
Any questions from the commission for Karen? No? Okay, if not, we will open the public hearing. If you would like to speak on this, if you could step forward, state your name and your address, please. Would you like to make any comments about the development? Okay, okay, yep. Do we have any questions that we'd like to ask the developer? No? Okay. Then we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for action. What is the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to rezone it from I,
To the,
Two to
as
B3?
proposed? Okay. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, perfect. Congratulations. Thanks for doing business in Fergus. Next one would be the Westridge Mall Limited Partnership variance for the proposed Lot 1, Block 1 in the second edition. Karen, do you want to do a presentation on that?
Yes, so this is basically kind of a two-part case. So we hear the variance request first, since it is to subdivide a property that doesn't meet the minimum requirements for that zoning district. So we'll hear the variance case separately, and then we'll hear the actual subdivision case subsequently. So this is at the Westridge Mall. So it is a proposed subdivision of a 10,000 square foot retail space, storefront, and its associated parking. So the reason the variance is being sought is that it does not meet the 50-foot setback requirements for the B6 zoning district, and it does not meet the 4-acre minimum lot size requirement. And this is just an aerial map of the mall. So there's been, as the staff report noted, there's been some subdivisions of the mall that have occurred over the years. And so this is the piece that's left under the mall ownership entity currently. And the affected variance and subdivision is this kind of little piece right here. And since it's located within the mall, its surrounding uses are just sort of retail in nature. Kind of the mall space itself right now is vacant, but this parcel has the Dollar Tree store, and there's also a vacant storefront. And this is Dunham's and the theater over here. The zoning map, the proposed subdivision, it's not proposing any rezoning. So this is a parcel that will be zoned B6, sub-regional shopping center. So that's just our typical kind of big box store area that we have in Fergus Falls, including the mall. And then it would just be surrounded on all sides by that B6 zoning as well. Regarding the variance, again, that notice was mailed to property owners within 350 feet and published in the Daily Journal, and no comments were received off of that mailing. And there were no internal City of Fergus Falls staff comments for the variance. And so for the variance, based on the findings listed in the staff report, staff are recommending approval with no conditions. So that is staff's recommendation and presentation, and the applicant's representatives from Interstate Engineering are here this evening, should the Planning Commission have any questions. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for staff?
How will the utilities be separated out from the main structure of the mall?
So regarding the subdivision that gets touched on a little bit, it's not necessarily for the variance request. But that isn't going to get separated out under the proposed developers agreement, proposed conditions from staff. And the previous subdivisions have also not had the utilities separated.
Now, we have, and this would probably go to the next one, but we have required up-to-date utility payments and taxes before subdividing in the past as part of our conditions. I think, right? Kelsey, you're nodding.
I believe so.
Is that something that will come in the second part of this if we want to go attach that, or where can we make that known?
Yep, so one of the recommended conditions on the subdivision is that it would be current with utility payments.
Okay. I guess one question I have is, and maybe this is just Fergus rumor mill, that the mall is going up for auction at some point this spring, and I'm seeing nodding. Is this parcel that we're talking about part of that auction, or the remaining part is part of that auction? Or will this stay with a current developer?
So my understanding is that the intention of this subdivision is for sale of the storefront to a separate party.
They currently have a potential buyer for this portion,
Okay.
that they would prefer to make that sale separately. If that sale were to fall through, it could then that could get included in the auction.
Okay. Okay.
Assuming there's an auction, nothing's in stone.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I think we'll open the public hearing. Do the applicant's representatives want to make any other comments for the record? Do we have any questions for them? No? If not, we'll close the public hearing. And what would the commission wish to do with this?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second? Motion is Kelsey?
I'll second. Go for it.
Matt?
Matt,
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And we'll move on to the plat for the second edition.
All right, so this item is for the proposed subdivision, so Lot 1, Block 1 of West Ridge Second. So it would be a plat area of 0.8 acres, and it would include this vacant storefront and the associated parking area. And as we've discussed, for the purposes of selling this section of the property. So just the same context map as the variance case, as well as the zoning. So there's no proposed changes besides the subdivision of this one storefront. This is an excerpt from the plat. So this is the most recent subdivision of the mall that was finalized last summer. So this is the Dollar Tree parcel, and the solid line here is that proposed Lot 1, Block 1. So there weren't any public comments received from the mailing or the Daily Journal notice. However, the subdivision itself does have recommended conditions based on staff comments. So the staff recommendation is recommending approval with two conditions. The first is a developer's agreement. So all that a developer's agreement is it's an agreement between the city and the developer about certain improvements that might need to be installed, such as public utilities or other infrastructure work that might need to happen, or literally anything running the gamut as you're sort of developing property, in a context such as this. So we've had developers' agreements with previous subdivisions of the mall. So those recommended items in the developer's agreement are firewalls and separating the fire suppression systems. But that the utilities, so instead of installing separate infrastructure from the city lines to the building, would just be putting in a clause in the operating agreement that dictates kind of who pays for what as far as the city utilities, since those all do come in through one main line. And they also deal with what handles if, people don't, if people don't pay. So this operations and easement agreement is what we ended up doing for the most recent subdivision, that Dollar Tree parcel. And so that's where that recommendation is coming from. And the second recommended condition is that the developer shall be current on all accounts with the city, including but not limited to those utility bills prior to recording the final plat. So those are the staff recommendations and recommended conditions. If there's any questions, I can take those at this time, and the applicant's representatives as well.
Any questions? Okay, if not, we will open the public hearing. Hopefully they don't all speak at once. Anyone like to speak in the public hearing? If not, we will close the public hearing. Do we have questions from the committee, or would we like to make a motion?
I guess I just have one question with separating out the parking lots. Is there going to be some sort of association established out there to maintain parking lots, like snow removal, paving, painting, parking lot lighting, etc.?
So with each of the previous separations, they have an operating and easement agreement between those entities that details out maintenance of anything shared.
Okay.
I believe the parking lots are each the responsibility of those parcel owners, but where they have shared walls, shared utilities, it's all shared signs. I mean, it gets down to some very detailed stuff on
Sure.
who's what, just to make sure everybody's protected.
How about as far as access to the individual parcels? I think right now the mall shares a common entrance that is owned. Is that under discussion? Do they have easements or?
There's been easements
Okay.
included in each of the plats that eventually we'll start with the mall entrance and wrap all the way around to the theater.
Okay,
To ensure that each parcel has access.
thank you for those clarifications.
And there's no intent to have access coming off of kind of where those Aspen apartments are, or yes, that, no, okay. Okay.
And the, up, oh, now it's not going back, of course.
I know there was a discussion of that when the theater was.
I remember that, yeah.
They wanted to know that that was a potential in the future,
Right.
but at this time I'm not.
Okay. So does Home Depot have an easement then to get in through that main mall entrance as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And Home Depot and the mall owners have a similar operating easement agreement from years ago on who covers what, because some of the mall utilities, a lot of the mall utilities and Home Depot utilities ultimately merge and combine before they get to the city's services as well.
So I make a motion to approve with the additions or conditions that this.
The two
is
recommended conditions?
recommended.
Okay. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you. I think we've gone pretty quick here, so I don't think it'll take too long, but I think we can probably touch on that transitional housing. You had said if time allowed when we spoke earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes this keyboard decides to function and sometimes it doesn't. So with the transitional housing piece, so the memo and the staff report just sort of goes through the history of this topic, and we talked a little bit at the January meeting. So this really came about with a community organization, Welcome House, that was looking to purchase a detached home in an R1 neighborhood, which is a one-family residence district. And they were proposing to use it as sort of transitional housing, but they weren't proposing a large number of people occupy the dwelling. And so it was over the 5 unrelated people limit based on the definition of family in the zoning code. And the organization and their use did not meet an exemption for a state licensed residential facility, which would have allowed them a path through a conditional use permit. So the Planning Commission, it sort of took up this topic in July, August, September, wasn't able to make a lot of headway just since there were other entitlement cases that were coming through that summer, and so just formed a separate subcommittee. And also had 2 members appointed from City Council in the hopes that since it was kind of a big topic and something that would probably generate a lot of discussion at Council once it came for consideration, that would be good to just have that perspective as well as buy-in. So that subcommittee met twice in January. And the text that was included in the packet was their recommended language to send to the Planning Commission for its consideration. So just like the hotel changes that we recently made, this would still require a public hearing, but just wanted to take it forward at this time to see if there were any questions or concerns. We can certainly reconvene that subcommittee if it's necessary, but just sort of looking for general feedback now, or whether or not we would be ready to take this as a public hearing item at the March meeting.
Kelsey, do you have any comments about kind of how you landed here, or what was considered, or hesitations about what came back? I know you were on the committee.
Seems like a long time ago that we met. We wanted to make sure that the other causes, such as what came forward to us, could be covered, but we also wanted to make sure that there would be some control over this. We also recognize that the exemption about like family and 5 unrelated people, like that's happening all over town. College kids do it all the time. Other people do it for other reasons, obviously. And so that's how we landed with the language that we had. And it was kind of hard to think of other examples necessarily of who would be coming forward to asking us. And some of those things would be licensed by other organizations or licensed by the county or licensed by the city. So it was confusing, but that's how we got to what we have here.
And those licensed groups would still be exempt from the ordinance, like group homes, things like that would still be exempt from this.
Yep, and that's state and federal law, so we couldn't
Yep.
do that even if we wanted to.
I was just wondering about item 2C, there is adequate staffing and management. Just wondering if that's kind of vague, but maybe it should be vague. I'm just not sure about that.
I think the subcommittee's intention was to allow for some flexibility, that there may be some uses that a 24/7 staff member management may be warranted, and in some cases it may not be. And so if you did one or the other, you would sort of miss the chance to kind of mediate.
Sure, yep.
And I think we recognize that a lot of the uses would be covered by other licensure for requirements as far as the staffing too.
And it does kind of cover you, the way it's written now, if there were complaints that there wasn't adequate staffing or management, it would be part of our document.
And a lot of our zoning enforcement is complaint-based. I mean, a lot of it comes down to if the cops are getting called or neighbors are calling.
Yeah.
I guess I'm personally comfortable moving this forward to a public hearing, but is that the consensus of the group?
I am.
You are too?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So then should we schedule this for a public hearing at our March meeting?
Yep.
Is that
and-
fast enough or do we need things sooner for any group?
No, it's not my understanding that there's a rush for this. They moved on from the one property that they were considering, so.
Okay. Is there anything else, staff update, council update, anything else that we need to touch on?
The hotel ordinance, that was the motion directing the city attorney to draft the ordinance based on those recommendations, was approved at council. So our next step would be a first reading this coming Monday, hard to believe already, and then it goes to a second reading, which is when council would vote on the actual language, and so that would be the 22nd, I think, if my 22nd or 21st, the third Monday. And we will have 2 other public hearing items in March, in addition to the one that we just established with the transitional housing.
Okay.
But I think that's all the updates I have.
I have just one thing that I should have said before, but we kind of whipped through stuff, but on the Kevin Bartram's document, and this won't change anything that we did, I don't think, but rezoning I-2 to B3.
Yep.
It says Reserve 73 lying east of the west line of Vine Street and lying north of the Red River. And so I think they've just put Red River instead of Otter Tail River.
So that would just be I think the legal description of the property. So the river used to be called that. So I think probably in all of the legal documents that are referring to this property, it says Red River.
Oh, got it. Okay.
That'd probably be straight out of the abstract would be my guess. Or, the recorded documents.
And
That's
my understanding is that's where Mark pulled the document from, was all the deeds. And,
It was the Red River at the time that was written.
yep.
Oh, that's that. Thank you. I did not know that.
Does that answer?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice catch.
Yeah.
I just,
We've got a reader. Anything else tonight? Okay, if not, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, we're good. Thank you, everybody.
Good work on renaming the park, Sarah. So special. There's so many people.
What's up? Thank you.
I remember.